And you're all right.
Well, hi, Mike. Thanks for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. My name's Mike O'Halloran. I'm a mechanical engineer. I did a little bit of aerospace work at when I was in university at Oregon State University. Currently, I do design work for a recycling recycling facilities manufacturer. I find that a lot of fun, and I follow all the aerospace goings on, on space Twitter. So that's how I bumped into you.
So you're a recycling manufacturer. Do you actually take like the used products and actually turn them into some type of feedstock for something, or can you talk a little bit more?
Yeah, sure thing. Our customers, my company's customers, tend to be municipalities and like garbage collectors, and so they'll have a lot of things that ought to be recycled, and they'll um, so we design the facilities that sort that out. So they'll get aluminum out, glass. They'll separate everything that they can, and then let the rest of the stuff rot, basically. So
You said rot.
yeah, like there's a lot of like yard waste, and um, it depends on how you know specific you want me to get with my language here. There's a lot of things in garbage that are not very fun to think about. So
No, that's fine. Have you ever heard of a group called One Army?
uh,
Precious Plastics,
no, I
maybe?
haven't.
Yeah,
No.
it's like this community recycling group for plastics. I actually found out about it through one of these Countdown to the Moon interviews. And I was like,
Oh,
whoa, that's pretty neat. And they have like all these videos on how to like set up collection centers and, sorting the plastics and, which ones you can like melt and mold and which ones you really can't. And
yeah.
just really
No, that's
interesting.
it's great. Yeah. The thing with my company is we tend to like the waste stream from a given city can vary a lot. Like for example, if you set up, a facility next to an Amazon recycling facility, you're gonna have a lot of cardboard, or like an Amazon warehouse. So we tend to kind of like go with what the customer wants, but what it sounds like what they're doing is more like trying to reinvent the garbage stream, which is actually a really good idea, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I've often thought about recycling and why people don't do it. And I think that people aren't really sure it's actually happening.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, you might make an argument that it's unfair of consumers to try to make these decisions, because they're never going to make them as good as a like let's say a professional, as in somebody who programs a machine that does all the sorting in one spot. It's probably going to do it better than everybody who has different ideas about what's recyclable. And you can even make an argument that, like, for example, in my state, those little soda cans, they cost 10 cents each. So people tend to put those in a different waste stream. you know just like a big bunch of, you have like one stream that's all trash, and then one stream that's a lot of those. It's like that's insanely valuable, and the trash is not. But if you mixed them all, then that would provide a lot more incentive to really thoroughly separate that stream, and you actually might end up separating it better and pulling more out than you would otherwise. um so honestly, I'm kind of like, if people throw things away, it's probably going to get pulled out anyway. So yeah.
But I think the other reason people don't recycle is because they're like, what's in it for me?
Yeah, there's only so much time in the day to think about these things, and when you've got your kid that's, I don't know, maybe his grades are slipping, or god, who knows, there's always so many things to focus on, and you know trash just disappears, so you don't worry about it.
But I was thinking if we were able to create a device that could take like discarded plastic um, and separate out the plastic you can actually use, clean it, and actually turn it into household items directly in somebody's house, that might really completely change the narrative.
I think so. Yeah. Well, the thing with they kind of from an Elon Musk perspective, how he'll try to like think big picture. It's like the future of plastics as we know them is limited because they're derived from fossil fuels, and that's not lasting forever. And so, like, I just 3D printed this today. Actually, it's a little model of the SpaceX Dragon. I actually just got this done a couple hours ago. Um, I printed it out of PLA, which is polylactic acid, and it's actually derived from soy, and it's literally just long chains of lactic acid, the same thing that makes your legs sore after you work out really hard. And so they'll actually like medical practices will actually make parts, like plastic parts, that they'll put in your body because it's just lactic acid. And this is actually biodegradable, kind of. If you put it in the right, the right environment, like 2 years later, it's not there anymore, or
Wow.
5 years later, or whatever. So like this is probably the future. Um, yeah, it's probably more the future than most other types of plastic. Basically, all the others. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you could even take that part, melt it down and extrude it as a filament and actually
Oh,
run it through
absolutely.
the machine
Yeah,
again.
absolutely. Yeah, that with some plastics, there's more degradation. With others, there's a lot of like how long the plastic spends being in a molten state. That kind of affects its degradation. But yeah, like this, I could literally like smash this up with a hammer, melt it. Like you can get like hobbyist level machines that will you can turn them into pellets and then like re-extrude it as a filament and then use it again. So people recycle their waste that way, which is really great. And it's not just PLA; they'll do it with PETG and I think even ABS. Not positive on that though. So do you know who Homer Hickam is?
I've seen him online, and there's a I think he wrote a book, Rocket Boys, if I'm,
Yes.
and he's
Yeah.
also one of the speakers at this Interstellar conference in Tucson, Arizona at the end of September. I'm thinking of going to.
You should. You should definitely go to that. If you have the opportunity, do it. Um, yeah, there's been a couple times where he's replied to me on Twitter, and it was a while back. We were talking. He was talking about the moon, and I had told him that I work, in a recycling facility. I said, at the point that we have garbage sorting systems on the moon, that's when we know we're not going anywhere on the moon. Like if you actually have so many people that are actually producing trash that you actually need a separate facility to actually deal with that and keep the moon clean, like that's when like we have a good solid presence on the moon. I feel like,
We're
you
there to
know,
stay.
yeah, we're there to stay. It's very exciting.
How far away do you think we are from that?
It's a good question. I guess it by we, do you mean Artemis or do you mean Artemis and SpaceX and China or
Humanity.
just humanity?
They could speak any language, any religion or
Yeah.
non-religion, any type of thing. I just the first people that have uh, DNA and bodies that resemble ours.
Right. Well, my money's on before 2030, before this decade's out. Um,
And we'll have a recycling center on the moon.
oh God, jeez. Well, we'll definitely need it in order to have that many people on Earth. You'd need to have Starship up and running, and probably like a second generation Starship that's even more efficient. I think there's been talk a little bit about doubling the diameter of Starship. That makes it operationally simpler. You could get maybe 500 or 600 tons to the moon on a single single launch with that, and then the rocket would also be more stable as it comes down because it's got a lower fineness ratio. Um, it's just stouter. But anyway, you need that to happen. That's probably, God, probably at least 4 or 5 decades away. You'd have to have mining operations. People would need to have jobs on the moon. People would need to be able to live on the moon and not want, like, actually enjoy it. it's not going to be enjoyable for a while. It's going to take even longer to be enjoyable on Mars because it's so far away. I mean, I'm certainly no expert, but I would think like for a recycling facility on the moon, even just a small one, you're probably looking at 2050 ish, probably a handful of decades away, as long as there's an actual economic reason to be on the moon. So like, Tory Bruno's talked about this where they want the Centaur 5 for their Vulcan rocket to be kind of a space tug in the cislunar economy. So then you need to be pulling ice from the moon constantly and then go out and mine asteroids. So if asteroid mining turns out to be lucrative, then there will be very quickly mining towns on the moon. That will happen very quickly, I would think. People want to spend money on it, it'll happen.
I find 2050 to be an inspirational date. I so hope that happens. I mean, my life, I was born 3 years after the last time we landed on the moon, and we've literally not been any place,
Yeah.
since then. So for like, 40, 45 years, we haven't gone any place. I'm really, I mean, I could wait another 30 years.
Yeah.
85, I having a recycling plant on the moon, I think it'd be exciting.
Yeah. What? So you've
75. Okay, sorry.
75. Yeah. So I was born in 92. So I was kind of a shuttle era. I grew up. Space shuttle was kind of like the thing. And then I remember like faintly the ISS going up. I remember the Columbia disaster. I didn't really understand a whole lot about it. I just knew they broke up on reentry. So you've seen a lot more of the slow creep of entropy than I have.
I've seen a lot more of nothing.
Yeah. So you're probably just absolutely stoked.
Completely, because I mean,
Yeah.
there's two things I was interested in high school: computers and space.
Yeah.
And the internet was just like taking off like crazy. I mean, anybody who knew anything about computers or the internet, instant job, you know.
Yeah. No, it's um yeah, I so the first time that I actually noticed SpaceX was when they did a Grasshopper test back in like 2013 for their Falcon 9. They just took a little first stage, threw some really heavy landing gear on it and a single Merlin engine, and just kind of did some hop tests out in McGregor. And they put Johnny Cash's song "The Ring of Fire" to it, which is a great use of that song. And I was like, this is different. And then when they launched the Falcon Heavy with the Starman, yeah, those two engines, they're really good at theatrics. They're really good at theatrics. SpaceX is. You got to hand it to them for that.
Well, and from the people I talked to, I mean, most of my initial idea of this project was to talk to non-space people at Starbucks and at the mall and on
Right.
the street. And I've talked to a lot of them, and about 80% of them have no idea we're going to the moon in 2024.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
nuts. It's like they might know what the word Artemis is, but like
well, they probably know it as a Greek goddess, more likely than
yeah.
than having anything to do with the space.
Yeah. Yeah, it's remarkable. It's strange because, well, I don't know. It's kind of funny, every time. I don't know about you, but I follow, Michael Sheets and Chris Davenport and the NASA spaceflight guys, and I might be saying his name wrong. Emmer Kelly, the Florida Today guy.
Yeah, but I mean, but also Tim Dodd and his
Yeah,
his
Trevor
interview
Sesnick.
with Elon and the walk through
Yeah,
Starbase. I was just like, wow, that's
yeah. No, but like, it's funny when they report on something. It's happened a couple times. Like my wife, she listens to me, blab on about space and stuff, but every now and then something actually big enough happens that she's actually talking about it, it's like, oh God, like my world just kind of like spilled out into like the national zeitgeist. And that's kind of cool, when that happens. But it's not often though. Like I think she first heard about Artemis from me, and nobody knows what the SLS is. Like everybody knew what the space shuttle is. Nobody knows what the SLS looks like. I feel like.
It's a way to channel large amounts of money into political campaigns.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see it go. I don't know. What do you think? So I was kind of thinking about this today. It's like, so NASA has spent, they've already bought like enough. Oh God, what are they? The RS-25s? The engines?
I think that's right. Yeah, they're reusable
Okay.
space shuttle engines that we're throwing away. Yep.
Yeah. I always mix them up with RL-10s, which are Russians rockets, and they're not the same. But anyway, I think they've ordered enough to last like for like 7 or 8 more missions. And they have a lead time of a few years to manufacture. But I was kind of noticing like with like if you kind of, there's like writing on the wall, almost like SLS just lost the Europa Clipper mission. That's going to Falcon Heavy. Falcon Heavy and Vulcan are going to be servicing the Gateway. Falcon Heavy is going to launch the Gateway. Starship is going to land the astronauts on the moon. It's like at this point, the only reason that SLS even exists, like its envelope has shrunk to the point that literally all it's doing is launching people to the orbit around the moon, to Gateway, and
And
that's it.
Dear Moon, there's Artemis
Dearman's,
too, right there.
yeah. Well, that's yeah. Well, God, that's not even Artemis. That's just a private guy. That's just was Yusaka. Yeah, he's just buying a ride from Elon. Completely. But I don't know. It's almost like I wonder what you think. Like it seems like the scope and the envelope of SLS is shrinking, and I wonder if at some point it's going to get canceled. I mean, obviously it'll get canceled. Every rocket has a life, but I wonder if it's going to get canceled soon. What do you think?
Um, well, I really hope Starship works out. So I guess until we actually see it flying into orbit and completely reusable, I guess we just kind of have to hold our breath a little bit. But I mean, the big disappointment with SLS was they were supposed to be using shuttle parts that were already proven, already available, and should have been quick
Yeah.
and should have been cheap. And it's neither been
Yeah.
quick nor cheap. So
No.
that's the frustrating part.
Yeah. It's kind of a good, like people are always saying like, I see a lot on Twitter like, like ULA should just ditch the BE4s and go with Raptor. It's like, no, that's like as fun as that would be to watch. God, that'd be like Kardashians level drama in the space world. But like, it's a bad idea. You'd have to redesign the booster entirely, and it's like it's kind of the same thing that happened with SLS. It's like, yeah, in theory, it's all the same hardware until you have to stretch the tank and stretch the SRBs, and then you have to redo the structures completely because it's no longer side mounted, it's top mounted, and then you have to work on and then there's Orion, that's like $20 billion right there, and then they haven't even gotten the exploration upper stage figured out. That could be another 8 years, 10 years, 15 years till that thing's going. It's painful. Yeah.
And Elon's talking about producing 2 starships a week, each
Yeah, and they'll do it.
capable of flying 3 times per day.
Easily. Well, I was talking to my sister and her husband earlier. Her husband's in the Air Force, and I was mentioning to them about I was talking about Starship and kind of like Earth to Earth transport, point to point. And he made a remark. He's like, yeah, that's if big oil allows that. And it's like, well, this is almost bigger than them at a certain point, because the Pentagon's done, God, maybe I think it might be 3 different feasibility studies for like logistics, like military logistics, moving things around, like how could we use this, um, there's a lot of value there. People realize like once it's actually really safe, it's like people realize you're fine being cramped in a small space because you're going to be in that ship for a half an hour and they're going to be where you want. Like, then you can amortize the rocket a lot quicker because then you can fly it 10 times. You can do 10 times more flights than a jet because the jet takes forever to get to its destination. It also seems like starships are being built cheaper.
Yeah, if you think about a big cargo ship and the fact it takes like 2, 3, 4 weeks to get to where it's going. And if you're able to just, have a starship hop back and forth like 3 times a day, in that 4-week time span, it would be able to do, 100 trips back and forth.
Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing is that 3 times a day idea, I believe that's because it has limited cross range. So let's say you actually get to orbit and then the Earth rotates. You have to wait a little while for things to line back up so that you're actually in line and you can land where you need to land. Whereas like if you're just doing point to point hops, God, you can fly basically as quick as you need to fuel it up again, do some checkouts and inspections, and then run away from it.
Maybe 20 times a day then.
Potentially, depending on how far it is. I would think that, God, like let's say you're going from, I don't know, like let's say South Carolina to, let's pick on Afghanistan since that's in the news. You could probably fly that thing at least 10 times a day, every couple hours.
That'd be freaky. Here we are. Okay, now we're gone. Okay, we're back.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably loading the thing would take longer than flying it. Like loading
indeed.
cargo.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. You would want to have essentially you would want to have like pre-staged containers that you just slam into
Yeah.
the cargo thing. You just have them, you almost have like an auto loading thing happening. It
Yeah.
lands, fuels, auto load, lands, and it just comes out on the other side. It's just like,
It's amazing. Yeah. It's funny. I flew out to see my sister in person several months ago, and I was sitting next to a really nice couple from Kansas, and this was right after, oh God, it must have been the like maybe the SN-10 landing, the one that kind of like stuck the landing and then it blew up a minute later. It kind of like crunched its legs really good, and then it didn't it didn't fare well. It flew again. Anyway, I showed these. So I was all hyped about this, and then I showed this couple a video of SN-8's landing. And I told him, imagine flying in this, but it actually sticks the landing every time. And they just kind of gave me this look like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, you could, any flight would take less than an hour. You're flying out in space. And then the guy goes, is this one of Musk's things? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I've been hearing about this. It's like, so, yeah. Yeah. Have you seen Starship in person?
I have. I saw SN-13, I think. The one that took off and landed in the mist, in like March.
The one that actually like finally landed.
The one before that, the one where the
Oh,
FAA guy, they couldn't launch, and then he came on Monday, and it was all
yes.
misty.
And
Even
then
if
it
I was there,
exploded.
even if I was there,
Yeah.
I really couldn't see it. I was like hoping it would be that earlier that week, because
Yeah.
I went down to South Padre Island, which is like right next to Boca Chica for
Yeah.
spring break.
Yeah.
And so we went over there, took some pictures. I even did a countdown to the moon interview right in front of the Starship. It's kind of windy, so you really can't hear him, but I thought that's kind of cool. But actually, I had also gone and visited back in I want to say 2018.
Oh God, so back when it was just maybe the little star hopper that's like halfway
Just the
built.
Star Hopper, yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's like 2019.
Maybe
Uh,
2019 then. Maybe I think I went to go. No, it was
might have been before that.
it was 20. Was
Is
it
it late?
2019? I think it was 2018.
It might have been. I think they started building. Everybody thought it was a water tower back in I think like November of 2018, and then it became clear it was a rocket. Like I think around like February.
Of 2019.
Yeah, and then
Okay,
his nose
so
cone.
it
Yeah.
must have been 2019 then.
Okay. That's awesome. Good for you. I still haven't seen it yet. Um,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
really crazy what they have going on down there. I watched What About It?
Yes.
I love
Yeah.
those videos. I can't believe the guys in Germany has such great coverage of
Yeah. He's
Boca
wild.
Chica.
I hope he's been talking about moving over to Florida for a little while. I hope he actually does that. Um, I think he has some family he'd have to uproot, so I think it's pretty tricky for him. But um, it'd be a plus to the space community anyway. His coverage is pretty good. Yeah, it's really good. I think. Uh, yeah, good for you getting to see it in person. That's fantastic.
I
I've
haven't seen a launch yet or a flight. Just the you know just the
just
vehicle
the
sitting
mist.
there.
So how loud is it?
I haven't seen that either. Like
Oh,
I
okay.
saw it the week before.
Oh, got
Yeah,
it.
and then I came back. But so even if I had stayed to see it, I still wouldn't have seen it. Was kind of my
Okay.
joke.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that one was I love that image of Tim Dodd realizing that his equipment might have been crunched by falling debris. He's like like just his mouth is open. He's like, "Oh God." Like I just set that up. It's yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty cool landing. Not that we saw anything of it, but just see debris. Yeah.
But there's a lot of conservationists who are concerned about like the wildlife in that area and the natural
Yeah.
environment, and those explosions kind of leads some credence to their concerns.
Yeah. I think well, it's hard to tell exactly how big those explosions are, because I mean, on the one hand, like they don't look that much bigger than the rocket itself, but on the other hand, that rocket is huge. Although generally when there's a large fireball, the actual shock wave is not that big. The real explosions you have to watch out for are the ones where there's actually not that much fire. Then it's a true detonation. And
Hmm.
if you do it in slow motion, you'll usually see kind of a little mirage effect of the shockwave distorting light from varying density. But I think they would the conservation like the Save RVG folks, RGV, Rio Grande Valley, the Save RGV folks. I think they probably have a point if you had a full stack explode because that's the size of a small nuke. It's like 6,000 tons or something or maybe like 1,500 tons of methane, like exploding all at once. That's a very large. It's comparable to one of the N1 explosions, which were those are on Wikipedia top 10 lists with how big they were. So, um, maybe you don't want to watch out for that. But I think if they're worried about daily launches or whatever, like the sound from the launches, I don't think they should be too worried because the marshlands surrounding Cape Canaveral is also a wildlife refuge, and it's never really seemed to be a problem. The thing the Save RGV folks should keep in mind is that sound gets attenuated a lot once it actually goes into water. And so if you're worried about birds and stuff, like you actually have a point. But if you're worried about like frogs and other critters that just kind of live in the water, it's not too bad for them. It's really not, especially since they have a sound suppression system. It looks like they have that water deluge that helps knock off a couple dozen decibels from the sound. And so, I mean, I mean, if they weren't careful, they would disrupt spring break from ever happening at South Padre Island, and then they lose like $1 billion a year in tourism. Nobody wants that, so they're not gonna, they're gonna be careful, I would think.
Yeah, I would hope. I mean, it's hard to get passengers if people are afraid of explosions. But
Yeah.
um, what do you think about us going to the moon?
Oh God, why are we not there already? Jesus. Like, given how expensive the space shuttle program turned out to be, we honestly just should have stuck with Saturn V's and made them cheaper to build and run. We could have done that, and it would have like could have easily had a permanent presence on the moon by now. We would have discovered water a long time ago, and then we would have understood why it's good to be on the moon. So yeah, this needed to happen a while ago. Our economy would be a lot bigger if we were on the moon. If we had been on the moon for a while already, it'd be much, much bigger.
And do you think at some point humanity will branch out into the solar system to such a great extent that Earth is just one of many places that humanity is?
I think as long as there's economic incentive, there will always be people on the moon. As long as we figure out good habitats and it's actually an enjoyable place to live, I don't think people would ever want to leave the moon. It's kind of like, once it's your home, and your great grandparents lived there, so you don't want to leave. And then Mars, it's harder to make an argument why we should be on Mars economically, but I think it's a great adventure, and I think enough people will want to be there that I think it'd be good for developing technology. Mars would, it's an extreme environment. I argue this with my sister all the time, who's kind of a bit of an environmental, kind of like throw your hands up and we're just bad for the planet. It's like, well, yeah, we've certainly been bad for the planet, but are the types that are like, well, why are we wasting money on space when we can be on Earth? It's like, well, you go to Mars, you need to generate fuel to get back. You can use that technology and you can scale it up and you can start sequestering carbon back on Earth. Like like we've always found that with the cross pollination of science, and engineering and stuff, it's like the MRI machines were kind of that technology was pulled from an astrophysicist. So it's like there will be technology that's developed as a necessity to stay alive on Mars that will benefit us greatly on Earth. I'd bet you $1 million on that. I'd bet you $1 trillion. I'd bet you $1 quadrillion on that, because I bet you that's the value that would generate. And then I think the other one is potentially Titan. It's extremely cold, but if we develop a good nuclear fusion, there'd be a lot of neat research to do on Titan. And it's got a thick atmosphere. So I mean, really, with Titan, and the atmosphere is so thick and the gravity is so light that you could actually, like, if you had like a Daedalus and Icarus, the wings glued to your arms, you could actually flap around and fly on Titan. Yeah, the atmosphere is so thick, and it's about as heavy as the moon with gravity, so you could just kind of flap around, like even an umbrella, kind of like doing this. You'd kind of start to get a little bit of lift.
Yeah, so if Titan has about the same gravity as our moon, how is it able to hold on to its atmosphere?
I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe because it's further away, so there's less solar wind to strip it. It could be that it has a bit more of a magnetic field, or maybe it's shielded by Saturn's I don't know though. I have no idea, but it is insanely thick. Like, they know that for sure. When that little probe landed there, it's like, holy cow, this atmosphere is thick. And so with that one, it's extremely cold and the atmosphere is like quite a bit thicker, but the pressure's good. So you kind of don't need like an extreme pressure spacesuit. All you need is like an oxygen tank and like some really good sweaters. And you're kind of okay. Just, I mean, it's like negative 250 Fahrenheit. So it is really cold, but like we do negative 150 in Antarctica. So that might be one of the easier places to actually live.
Yeah, one time I went to Minneapolis in the winter and I walked outside. I didn't feel cold at all. It was like so cold that my body didn't know what to make of it.
Yeah, well, at a certain point, um, it's almost like cold is just cold. Like to me, like I've experienced -40 before. In fact, I actually, um, in my old place, it got down to -40 one day, and so I was like, well, this is probably the coldest it's going to get in a long time. So I went ahead and got in my swim trunks and did a snow angel, just to say, just to know what that's like, and it wasn't too bad until I decided that I'd had enough, and then I got up and then I realized there was a bunch of snow sticking to me still, and then it started to get pretty painful. But all that to say, I probably couldn't tell you a whole lot but of difference between -40 and 0. There's a if you, there's in feeling there's a big difference between 80 and 40 and 0, but between 0 and -40, it's just kind of all cold.
And in my household, there seems to be a big difference between 70 and 72, just as a reference point.
Yeah, I've noticed that with some thermostats, they'll just kind of like 1 degree is all the difference, and it's like, well, this is probably not accurate. Yeah.
So if it was safe and affordable, would you go to space?
Oh, absolutely. No
Like,
question.
how far would you go? Orbit, to the moon, immigrate to Mars for the rest of your life? Like, what would you consider doing?
Well, my wife isn't a super big fan of leaving Earth. I've already talked to her about that. Mars would, there's a significant risk of death, at least by cancer, if you go to Mars. If we had a colony on the moon and I signed up for like, I don't know, some like work rotation where I just worked on the moon for a month or two, like I'd probably jump at that opportunity even if it was free. Like, yeah, I'll stand on the moon for a couple months if you put me to work. I'm fine with that. Um, I'd definitely pay money to do a free return trajectory tourism mission around the moon. That'd be so neat. But I'd like to stand on the moon. That'd be really cool.
Did you apply to be on Inspiration 4? Like, donate some money to St. Jude's and
Um, no, I strongly considered it, but real life kind of got in the way. At the time, I had quit a job that I realized was a terrible fit for me, and I was becoming kind of a resentful person over it. And so I was kind of trying to straighten out my resume um and for me, when I'm in between jobs, I tend to easily spiral. So I was just kind of trying to stay focused, you know. So I kind of I didn't I do remember doing the drug test for my new job because they required that. I remember doing that when they had announced phase two for the selection process for Dear Moon. I remember like listening to that video, and I think that was when Tim Dodd was like, "Oh my god, I actually got featured in the video." So it's good for him. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I Inspiration 4, I did not know anything about it until like the first week of February. Like before that, I had heard nothing. And then like they only allowed for you to donate or do the commerce part of it till the end of February. It's like so short. It's just
Yeah.
like,
I'm sorry. I thought earlier you were talking about Dear Moon. I realize now you're talking about Inspiration 4, which is different. Yeah, I didn't bother with that one. I kind of figured since there's like the Jared guy, he knows exactly what he's looking for, and I'm not it. So I didn't bother.
I don't know the guy that won the commerce thing. Uh I mean, the guy that donated the money. I mean, he seems like you and like me, and
Oh,
I I think we could have been him.
yeah. Well, maybe so. Maybe I should be a little more open to those possibilities.
But in fact, I was telling my wife about it. She's like, "Oh, you can't go." And we almost had like a fight over whether or not I could could go, but my odds of actually getting picked were like so low that
Yeah.
that's kind of a pointless thing to fight about.
Well, Sure, but it does help kind of scope out expectations, you know, like it helps you know where the other person's truly at, you know. Um, I think I think your wife would be surprised how safe the Dragon capsule is. It's probably the safest thing ever. I mean, it hasn't flown that much, but and it did have that anomaly a couple of years ago with the valve, but they fixed that. I think you'd be in pretty good hands.
Ironically, she's actually feels comfortable with Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin because she's like, the founders of those companies went on it, and she's like, when Elon's ready to go, then I'll feel comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, that's a. I mean, there is something to be said for kind of like putting your money where your mouth is. In Elon's defense, I think he's just too busy having fun being the chief engineer. Um, it takes a, as we've seen with Inspiration 4, it takes a, even if you're just kind of an amateur, it takes a lot of time to train. Um, I don't think he has that time. It's a lot easier to train for a mission when it's 3 minutes of weightlessness. You don't get sick in 3 minutes. You do get sick in 3 days.
Yeah, I've been on the zero G flight. So I could tell you, you haven't been sick. You don't get sick in the first 30 seconds either.
Yeah, God, lucky you. You've done some pretty neat things. You've seen Starship. You've been on the Vomit Comet. How was that?
It was very surprising. I was so afraid of throwing up, and I had read so much about having the sensation of falling.
Yeah.
But I was pleasantly surprised not to have any sensation of throwing up and no feeling of falling. You just one moment you have the surface of the plane pressing against you, and the next moment you're just floating in air. And I did some flips, and if it weren't for the fact that I had my eyes open, I would not have known I was slipping. Like, you have no
Wow.
sense of anything. I mean, it felt great. One of the other people that was doing it for the second time, we were talking before the flight. She's like, you just feel light, like you're floating. She said
Yeah.
it's what she imagines heaven being like.
Does it feel different than floating in a pool? I imagine it would.
Yes, it does
Okay.
feel different than floating in a pool. Absolutely.
But like for me, I'll jump off of bridges into deep water sometimes. There's a spot my wife and I like to go to, and that 3/4 of a second of falling 25 feet is just an absolute thrill for me.
Well, I
But
mean, I think the thing with you jumping off or even being in the pool is there's so much resistance to your change of motion. Um, there's almost no resistance to like the only thing you have is momentum. You don't have this constant tug in any particular way.
yeah, maybe next time I should, as long as I'm confident with my orientation with water, I'm not going to whack my head on it or something. I should try closing my eyes and see how that feels. Maybe it'd be less scary. Because from what you're saying, it sounds like on the Vomit Comet, it's actually like no big deal. To me, it's always felt like it'd be terrifying because it's like, oh my God, I'm falling. What's going on? But it sounds
Mm-mm.
like it's not like that.
No, no, not at all. I did the first three parabolas. They didn't do free fall. The first one they did Martian gravity, and the next two they did lunar gravity. And I gotta tell
Okay.
you that those actually felt uncomfortable. Like uh,
Oh,
I mean, you're feeling gravity, but the volume was wrong or something.
hmm, interesting. Yeah, I could kind of see, make you feel dizzy.
No, didn't feel
Okay,
dizzy.
well, that's
Didn't feel
good.
dizzy. Now, I afterwards getting off the bus that took us from the plane to the hotel where we were, I felt all jittery, but I think that's just the adrenaline and the excitement and
Right.
all that stuff.
You ever see OK Go, the the band? They had a music video where
Oh
they,
yes, yes,
yeah,
where they're like in the seats and the paint's going
this-
everywhere, and
yes.
that I love that video.
It's a great, yeah, what a cool music video. Yeah. But the moon, yeah, I do know too, like, like comets kind of loaded with heavy water, and we're getting pretty close to cracking nuclear fusion, which uses heavy water. And so there may be economic incentive to mine comets for energy. You get a lot of energy from that, but then it's like, kind of wonder if maybe there'd be some heavy, like a higher than normal percentage of heavy water on the moon too. And if there is, that's a lot easier to access. And then that's like, oh God, it's like, it's more energy than you could ever know what to do with. It'd almost be a shame to use that as rocket fuel.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, what other things have been preserved in that water ice? As these, meteors have been hitting the Earth and kicking up material, some of that making it escape
Yeah.
velocity. I wonder if any of that material has actually fallen into the moon and might be preserved after millions of years.
It would be interesting if we ever found a dinosaur tooth or something buried in the moon from the Chicxulub meteor. You know, just got just escape velocity right onto the moon.
I saw a cartoon once. It had this astronaut landing on the moon and it says, "Houston, we've got a problem." And you like see, and it's like this dinosaur bones with like their own
Oh
little.
God. You ever see South Park?
Yeah.
You ever see the episode where they have free Wilsiacs that killer whale they're trying to get back to the moon because they think that it
No,
can talk. Oh
I had to
God, it's
see it.
hilarious. Yeah, they go to a fish tank and Stan, he goes up to the, yeah, Reddy leaves and he goes up to the killer whale, and a couple of the announcers are just messing with him and they start like pretending to voice the killer whale, and he convinces all his friends that it's real, so they end up kidnapping the whale, and then they go to like NASA, the Mexican space agency, and get some cheap rocket, and they, at the end, there's this big fight between the PETA crowd and the aquarium crowd and the kids, and then this rocket comes up, and then like the end credits, it's just this dead killer whale on the surface of the moon.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like what Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, but like
Yes.
backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, where they come for the whales instead of the whales going out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good movie. Yeah. Uh
But that's pretty much all the questions I had. Did you have any questions for me or anything else you wanted to talk about?
um let me see here. Would you plan on going to the moon? Like
You,
like
uh,
sorry, go
several
ahead.
interesting things. One is I'm afraid of heights. Like put me on a tall building, I can't stand next to the edge. Like I went to the Shard in the London, which is like this tall glass building, and there's like I just all jittery. But on the other side of it, I am learning to fly a Cessna 172. I have no trouble with that. So it's like you put me in a plane, I'm fine. No fear of heights. So not sure how to do. But before I started this project, I'd have tell you, yes, I would have gone. But as I've talked to people and talked about their fears, and I guess the pandemic, and we're afraid of, I mean, I think the risks of dying from COVID is probably much less than a risk of dying from a trip to the moon. So,
Right.
that's kind of like recalibrated the whole risk thing into
Yeah.
and so all those things saying again, and then like the whole conversation about inspiration for and all that. So I have doubts. I think I definitely I would not be first. I would not be first.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'll be first either. That would be pretty stressful. Yeah. Are you planning on seeing any other trying to see any other Starship launches?
I would have liked to seen inspiration for. Um, Oh, Starship, not,
Sorry.
but you're
Yeah.
right, Starship. I want to drive down there next time they do the stacking again. I think that'd be good. I'd love to, the kids are off at college now. There's no reason, and I work remote. So there's no reason why I can just camp out at Padre Island on the south side with a nice
Yeah.
view, and just work from there.
I was
That would be
actually, it's,
fun.
yeah, yeah, it really would. It's kind of funny you say that because I was actually just talking about my wife about this an hour ago. I was talking to her, it's like, I'm working remote right now. If I could get a laptop from my work and do my work on that, there's no reason that I couldn't make the pilgrimage down there and just hang out there on South Padre Island or find a place in Brownsville and just wait.
And maybe, you don't necessarily need to have a place facing South Padre, maybe just have a boat. And
Yeah.
as long as you're not wayward boat
Or wayward plane
or
or
wayward
wayward
plane.
helicopter or wayward hiker
Yeah,
or
I wouldn't
yeah.
want to be famous in the community for something like that. And there's
No.
that countdown to the moon guy. He's held up the countdown again.
Ah, yeah. Oh God.
I talking about that, Homer Hickman and that interstellar thing. I sent out a tweet and I misspelled Tucson. And
Oh,
apparently there's somebody that is on the lookout for inverting the S and C's, and they tweeted and they're like, it's very embarrassing, but you misspelled Tucson. Gadget Nate, countdown to the moon. I
was
thought
it
it,
like a bot
the
or was
funny
it
thing is I thought it was a bot, but I went through reading the messages and they seem very well tailored to each situation. So I think it's probably a filtered and a person. But the name of the handle is like it's Tucson, as in like, you spell it right. It's Tucson. But I thought it was amazing. I actually thought it was pretty cool. I was like, I'm glad I misspelled it.
I
Otherwise, I would not have known about this.
yeah. Oh God. That's hilarious. Yeah. Well, if I do um end up actually finding a way to make it down there, I'd be coming from the Pacific Northwest, so it'd be a few days drive for me, 6 or 8 hours a day I'd get there. But if I ever do make it down there, I'll be sure to keep in contact with you. Um, yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
fun to meet up in South Padre Island or something. And
absolutely. Especially if I have a place there by then.
yeah, that'd be great. How far away are you from Boca Chica?
7-hour drive.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. You were okay with the hurricane?
Oh, this last one, yeah, it didn't touch us
Yeah.
at all. It
Okay,
didn't touch
good.
us at all. But we've had previous hurricanes that have done quite a bit of flooding.
Yeah, I can imagine. They seem terrifying to me. I've never experienced anything that large. It's like the eye of Jupiter comes down on you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not as bad as tornadoes. I mean, tornadoes kind of, they impact you like immediately. Hurricanes are more like, one's like a bullet and the other one's like, I don't know, some big like inflatable thing that just keeps getting heavier and heavier.
Right. It's like a it's like getting crushed by a hydraulic press or something.
Yes. You're like, that's not so bad. Okay, okay. You could, okay, okay.
Just keeps getting more and more punishing.
Yeah,
God.
yeah,
Yeah. And then they come embedded with tornadoes of their own.
yes,
That's lovely.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that'd be fun.
Well, I hope you make it down here. And but it's been really good talking to you.
You
I really
too.
appreciate your generosity and meeting
Oh,
up
no
with me.
problem. Yeah, no problem. This is fun. Yeah, I really like the space community. Um, you know, uh, for the most part, even on Twitter, they can get a little, kind of little too much about the drama. rather than the technical, but that's okay. That happens everywhere. But I love the space community, so this has been great. Yeah.
Well, good deal. Well, you have a good rest of your evening, Mike, and
Oh, you too.
I look forward to staying connected.
Awesome. Will do. All right.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.